Arms scandal. Is there any truth to it? The accusations came one after another. Ukraine promises full transparency. Who provoked this flurry of accusations? What is really happening? This is more than serious. Ukraine has found itself in the center of an arms scandal. Resonant publications circled the European media. Articles with loud headlines appeared in the United States. It is allegedly about smuggling, the sale of weapons that we received from Western partners. Who is behind this scandal? And is there any truth to it? My name is Alexey Matsuka. Let's figure it out together. To begin with, let's see how it all started and when exactly. It's even more important. By a strange coincidence, a wave of rumors gained momentum just on the eve of the next fourth meeting of the Rammstein Group, representatives of 50 countries of the world who are helping Ukraine with new weapons. Mass media and especially social networks replicated one sensation after another. Allegedly, the same javelins that Ukraine received as aid from America can now be easily bought on the black market in Europe. They are also sold, they say, on a darknet, a shadowy segment of the World Wide Web. It seems that everyone already knows the worth of such exposés, which are stamped by the troll factory, but it still worked. Doubts arose among Western partners. Is this just another hoax launched to disrupt supplies? HIMARS have been too annoying in recent weeks? Or does someone in Ukraine really use the help of Europeans and Americans not only at the front line, but also for their own enrichment? After all, if it were confirmed, a grandiose scandal would erupt. The amounts of money transferred by the partners to Ukraine were too large. With the beginning of a full-scale war, the United States alone provided more than $8 billion in military aid. The total assistance of the EU countries is almost 81 billion euros. It's a lot of money, you see, and statements begin to be heard at various levels. Allegedly, reporting and control are urgently needed. Congresswoman of Ukrainian origin Victoria Spars demanded the creation of a special commission in Congress. The new US ambassador urgently met with the Minister of Defense of Ukraine and the head of the General Staff. Control of arms supplies to Kyiv was also discussed by the EU interior ministers, and even during the Rammstein meeting. Interestingly, when the US Secretary of Defense went to the press afterwards, he did not publicly say a word about it. However, according to our sources, the topic of control over the supplied weapons was discussed in great detail. This was also confirmed by the words of Minister Reznikov, who called his American counterpart on the eve of the online meeting.
I discussed with our great friend Lloyd J. Austin III the upcoming meeting within the framework of Rammstein. We agreed on the agenda, shared information on the control of arms arriving in Ukraine, etc.
According to the information I received from diplomatic sources, Ukraine itself proposed to discuss this topic. In Kyiv, they went ahead of the curve. They were the first to start a conversation. They decided not to wait for partners to start asking questions, and right from the start they set the right accents. Let's get away from this for the time being and figure out what the press actually claimed that forced Ukraine to justify itself so seriously. Let's not pay attention to the Telegram channels, they only supported the information noise. But there was also heavy artillery. Fuel to the fire was added by this publication in the British Financial Times. Everything seemed to sound alarming. The headline, NATO and EU sound alarm over risk of Ukraine weapons smuggling. And the text of the article is relevant. One of the Western officials who spoke on condition of anonymity said that the weapons they are sent to Ukraine land in Poland. Then they are loaded into trucks, vans and sometimes private cars. And there the traces of weapons disappear. It seems like a big serious addition, but the name of the author of this sensation, the official who allegedly shared this information with journalists, remained unknown. What country is he from, and does he exist at all? It is worth digging deeper, and it turns out that this scandal has a Russian trace. I'll explain now. It all started back in June. NATO weapons can be freely bought on the black market. Such announcements appeared on the darknet. And, as you can see, the range on this and other platforms is huge. and the sellers, allegedly from Kyiv, even offer home delivery to the buyer. Of course, this information was immediately picked up by the Russian media. And the details poured in. Allegedly, small arms and light weapons, anti-tank systems, javelins, British NLAW, and the latest Phoenix Ghost American suicide drones are on sale. By the way, by that time Ukraine was only supposed to receive the letter. However, the price on the black market seems to have already been set. $4,000 a piece. And for NLAW, for example, $15,000. Again, by a strange coincidence, Russian officials such as Lavrov began to talk about the fact that there are entire online supermarkets of weapons of the armed forces of Ukraine. And then we start asking questions. Firstly, if some kind of weapons is really being sold, what prevented the Russians from putting up some of the trophies captured in Donbass for sale? On the other hand, as evidence, the press published the correspondence with the sellers. But it turned out, we specifically checked this, that none of the investigative journalists completed the deal. He did not buy anything, limited himself to virtual trading. Tell me what prevented the Troll Factory from posting a dozen ads and trading online without having real weapons. This version is good, and perhaps some of the lots were indeed exclusively virtual. But it turns out that there was also a real weapon in this scheme. First, the small German broadcaster SWR, although where did it get such sources from, quoted a confidential Europol document, saying,
"Criminal networks operate in the region and are planning or already smuggling a significant amount of firearms and ammunition, including military ones."
Then the German news agency DPA published an interview with the press secretary of Europol. It was he who announced the alleged recorded cases of smuggling.
Europol has recorded signs of arms smuggling from Ukraine. There are cases of trade in firearms and military goods on the black market. Investigators from EU countries also record signs of trade in heavy military weapons. There is a risk that they will fall into the hands of organized crime or terrorists.
Well, you must admit, neither Europeans nor Americans could remain calm after such words. The Ukrainian side now claims that there was a whole special operation. It even has its own name, Mag-Zim. Alexei Danilov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, spoke about it. It was he who turned to Europol for help to get the truth. This appeal also had grounds. As in the case of Rammstein, he wanted to get ahead of the curve. Not to wait for accusations, but show openness and ask to investigate everything.
We're most interested in the rapid exchange of information and lightning-fast response.
Having reported this officially, Europol has already launched a joint conversation, but since there is something to check. How could the weapon end up on the black market? Ukrainian officials have their own version. Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov believes that the Russians could have captured some items and put them up for sale, for the sake of provocation. Was anyone corrupt from the Ukrainian side involved on this? For official Kyiv, this answer is also incredibly important. This is a matter of reputation and future supplies. That's why European investigators were involved. However, both Europe and the United States have no doubts about Ukraine's integrity, and they are not going to roll up or freeze support. This is also because the Ukrainian military is promptly launching a new control scheme, and because the funds for this already exist. Few people think that modern weapons have GPS trackers. Respectively, their movement is quite easy to track by geolocation. The NATO LogFast system is already in Ukraine. It is considered the best in the world because it allows you to control almost all stages of the logistics of arms supplies, from customs operations to delivery. Kyiv joined it back in 2019, but now there are not enough software licenses for everyone. Another monitoring system has been tracking the country's military equipment since February the 24th. Module of the Informational Analytical System SOTA means honeycomb in English. It was developed by the Ukrainian National Security and Defense Council. Previously, their computers monitored the COVID situation. Now they control the military component, allowing them to see new deliveries. What is ready for shipment, what is on its way, and what has already been received by the servicemen. The partner country has the opportunity to analyze this data at any time. The third control system will appear in the near future. It was jointly developed by American and Ukrainian programmers. The scandal, which was clearly prepared as an excuse to disrupt Western arms supplies, made it possible to achieve greater transparency and openness. Yes, get it under control, but also to show that the West has nothing to worry about, and the weapons that are needed now at the front are going straight to the combat zone.